It's late and I want to make a video. I'm gonna try to be as loud as I can, but hopefully my headphones can pick up better sound than usual. So I really want to tell you about the Ark of Noah because what I found is that it's absolutely amazing. Let's begin. The Ark in Genesis 6 verse 14. Make an ark of gopher wood. Now I googled gopher wood and I don't know that we know what that means or what it looks like, but that's irrelevant because the thing that matters is that the word for gopher wood is made out of 3 characters. It's called gopher, but the 3 characters that it has from the Hebrew alphabet, which all have a meaning and it was given by God Himself, are the word whose meaning, the letters whose meaning are spirit, word, and prince. Does that remind you of anyone? Gopher wood. Gopher means spirit, wood, and prince. Because, my friends, the Ark of Noah is a pattern representation of Jesus, who is the Ark of our salvation. So gopher, right from the start, is spirit, word, and prince. Okay, verse 14. You shall make rooms in the ark. Rooms. Does it remind you of John when Jesus tells them, in my Father's house there are many mansions. I go to prepare you a place. Who is the Father's house? The Father's house is Jesus Himself. Over here in the Hebrew alphabet, the first letter is Aleph, means, represents God the Father. The very second one is a tent, representing Jesus as the dwelling place of God. Jesus is the Father's house. So when it says, in my Father's house there are many mansions, and over here in the ark it tells it to make rooms. Why? Because in the Father's house there are many mansions. And once again, that's Jesus as the Father's house. Alright, you should pitch it within and outside. Okay. And this is the way you should make it, the measurements. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits. The breadth, which I believe is the width, it should be 50 cubits. And the height of it, 30 cubits. I'm going to start from the bottom, 30. I spoke in my previous video of the perfection of the number 30. It is 3 divine perfection, 10 ordinal perfection, and it's the 12th letter of the Hebrew alphabet representing governmental perfection, among other things. So when you talk about a perfect number, 30 is it, represented by a shepherd's staff. And 30, as I mentioned, it's the height. And we see that in Ephesians 5:13 talks about, we have the fivefold ministry till we all come in the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, unto a perfect man, think 30, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. The measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ, being a perfect man, is 30. And the height of this ark is 30 cubits. And the height of Solomon's temple is also 30 cubits. Because 30 represents the fullness, the stature of the Son of God, Jesus. The breadth, the width is 50 cubits. 50 in the Hebrew alphabet is the letter Nun, which stands for fish or a sprout, representing all that is flesh, the little grass and the fish in the sea. So the width of this ark of salvation being enough to fill all that is flesh. And if 30 was the 12th number of the Hebrew alphabet, 50 is the 14th. 14 being a double measure, 7 and 7, together representing the Jews and the Gentiles. A room for all flesh, Jew and Gentile. And the length of it is 300 cubits. I talked about 300 yesterday when I was talking about Enoch, that he walked with God for 300 years. And 300 is, teeth, that represents strength, represents victory. But I found that interesting that Enoch walked with God 300 years. And the length of this ark is 300. It's almost as if Enoch traversed the length of this ark 300, and God took him. Something to think about. Next, and a window you shall make to the ark, and a cubit shall you finish it above, and the door of the ark shall you set in the side thereof. I'll talk about the door first. The door is in the side. Does it remind you of anything? Does it remind you of the side of Christ? The church was born out of his side, the sides of the north. And here is this door in the side of Christ himself, of the ark. And now the window. And there's a good amount of debate online about the window, because it's not even the same word used for window when Noah opened the window. It's a very specific word that it means noon. It's almost like a light should you make it. And even though it's referring to the window, because later he opens the window, but the word that is used is a certain word used for noon. That just means midday light. And here's why that word is used. It means it's called Zohar. And the three letters that it represents with it, one is the character for 99, representing judgment, 5, which is grace and beholding Christ, and 200, which is prince. So the word that is used there is like, behold the prince in judgment. And I believe, by the power of the Holy Spirit, that the window represents the law. Sister Donna shared in her video tonight about the law being a light, being like the glory of the sun. And because we know that the Lord said there's no transgression without the law. And at the same time, because if you don't know what's wrong, it's not wrong, right? And at the same time, it says when Jesus came into the world, the light came into the world. People did not want the light because their acts were evil, and they did not want them to be exposed, because it's the light that exposes, and the law as a light came to expose, and therefore now you know transgression. So here's this window representing the prince who came, beholding the prince who brings judgment. And it was a very specific word to pick, judgment, because it represents the law. Because along with the law came judgment, because now there is transgression because you have a law. So the window is the law, a shadow, like glimpsing through it, and the door is the fulfillment. If you think about the window, they were looking at the window to see, oh, the water is going down, or it's over the heads of the mountains or below. It's a preview. Whereas when the door opened, it's a fulfillment. You get to actually go and be part of this new world. In the same way with the window and the door, the window being the law, a shadow, a copy, a preview of what is coming, and then the door coming later. And then the ark had 3 stories. All right, 3 represents revival, resurrection, perfection. 1, it represents like gathering together in one. And 3 gathered into this ark of salvation are 3. They're the Old Testament saints, they're the New Testament saints, and the Great Tribulation saints. And these 3 are gathered together into one, into the ark of salvation. So when you see the ark that Noah built, the reason it is what it is because it is a physical representation of Jesus as the ark of salvation, as the Father's house. Now I have 2 more minutes. I have a few more minutes, so I want to quickly talk about what I shared yesterday in my community post, because it's also really cool. And I think for this one, I'll turn, actually it doesn't look like I can turn the camera. Okay, but I posted a picture of my notes in the community page. And what's really, really interesting for me is that Methuselah, Enoch had a child, and his name was Methuselah. And until this child, Enoch, lived, and after he walked with God. And his name, Enoch being a prophet, his name means his death brings. Because whatever, in the year that Methuselah dies, his death brings judgment, brings the flood. And yesterday the Holy Spirit showed me the pattern that when this next flood comes, when the end comes, his death brings, once again, a man's death will bring on this flood, this worst time in human history and destruction of this world as we know it. And that is the Antichrist, this man of sin who dies and supposedly is resurrected and is, alive. It is his death that brings. It is after his death that this man, or this image they build unto him, is um, possessed by Apollyon himself, by the spirits that are coming out of the bottomless pit and destroyed. Proclaims himself to be God, is worshipped, but it's really that death that marks that turning point. So it's really his death that will also bring this great flood, which leads me to believe that when we're talking about the end times and what would be the flood equivalent, it is the last 3.5 years when Jesus said it would be the worst time that has ever been in this world. That is what we're talking about, the flood. But what's really interesting is that Lamech, Noah's father, lived 777 years. Enoch represents, this church who walked with God, who's taken out, who's kept from the hour of trial. And then you see next, after Methuselah is Lamech, and he lived 777 years. And that points to the 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 bowls. But what's interesting is that he died 5 years before the flood, 5 being grace. And if you look in Isaiah 57:1, it says, "The righteous perishes, and no man lays it to heart. And merciful men are taken away, none considering that the righteous is taken away from the evil to come." And the words here for taken away are not the same words that were used for like when God took Adam or God took Enoch. Taken away it's used in Genesis 25:17 in different places, being gathered to his people, literally dying. So we see that there is this mercy in dying. When God takes the merciful man away from the evil that is to come. And Lamech represents those people because he's taken away 5 years, grace, before the judgment of God. And I was thinking, and what we know is coming into this world, to see that it's going to be so terrible that to die, whether that's, I guess it's in the first 3.5 years, thinking out loud, like to die during that period is grace, the mercy of God. Because after, when we see the bottomless pit is open and people are tormented, like they wish to die and they cannot, like dying would be merciful in the grace. So we see that Lamech represents those people who are going to die before this period, and it is God taking them away from the evil to come. I'll blow your mind on how terrible it's going to be. We just physically cannot imagine. I know I cannot imagine. I don't think I've known real hardships. I come from a poor country, but we're little. All the stress and the worry about like where you're gonna feed your kids. Like maybe my parents had it, but I was a little kid and I ate fruit off the trees, and I was not a very good eater and never wanted to eat. So like I didn't know even like hunger. I didn't know true poverty. We'll come to the U.S., we're blessed, and I have a job, I have a family, like, I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't know true hardship. So it's hard for me to having not seen it, having not experienced to really true hardships, to be able to like mentally say like, oh, it's gonna be worse than X. And I believe this generation that we're in, we truly haven't known true hardship. A lot of our jobs are on a computer. We just sit all day and think. And now we have AI. And at least my company, we're just so pressured into using it because the efficiency gains and the savings and, that constant like getting more done with less is just so strong. But if you're thinking about it now, even then, if you use that, like, you don't even really have to think, someone's doing the thinking for you. Like, we don't know hardship, and even less so we know hardship, because now even our minds we don't really need to use. So we're saying that the shock that is going to be this period from what we're used to now of being relatively safe, being fed, having a place to go to, the government still providing help. You're hungry, there's soup kitchens or like places that give you food. There's still some level of help. So I know I have no concept of what is coming, but the thought that to die is grace, that'll get you thinking. That certainly got me thinking, like, I don't want to be here for it. And I pray when there's a Luke that said, where it says, like, pray that you be found worthy to escape what is coming on this earth. That's me. I don't want to know what's coming. I certainly don't want to be here for it. And I'm praying, Lord, if we could just kind of finish up the work that we need to do before then, because I don't want to be here for it. But I hope this blesses you. We have our ark of salvation to look to, and that door open on the side.